Hello Mila, hello Jack, hello everybody else who's watching, and welcome to Storytime with Grandad. Today's book is from Postman Pat, and it is Postman Pat in a Muddle. It was a warm morning in Greendale, and there were plenty of letters and parcels for Pat to deliver. He was just finishing the village post when he met Major Forbes. The Major was busy reading his paper, with his nose almost touching the page. "Morning, Major," called Pat. "Morning, Pat. I say, this print gets smaller and smaller. Can't think what those fellows are up to. Can't see the half of it." "Well now, Major," said Pat, "I couldn't read a thing without my glasses. It's ever so fuzzy and blurred without them. It might be that you need a pair." "Oh, what a nuisance," said Major Forbes. "Suppose I'll have to pop into Pencaster for an eye test. And you know me, Pat, always losing things, breaking things. My Aunt Penny sat on her glasses once, smashed them to bits. Very painful." "You won't have to do that, Major," said Pat. "Well, I'll best be on my way. Cheerio." "What would I do without my glasses?" said Pat to Jess. At the post office, Mrs. Goggins was busy sorting the letters. "My goodness," said Pat, "what a hot day." He took his hat and glasses off to wipe his face with a tissue. "That's better." Then the doorbell jingled, and in came a big parcel, with someone behind it. "Hello, who's that?" said Pat. It was Ted Glenn. "Catch hold of that corner, Pat," said Ted. "It's a bit... Oops, it's a right weight. Ooh." Pat caught hold of the nearest corner. "Just get it on there," gasped Ted. "That's it, push." They heaved it higher and dumped it on the counter. "I hope it's nothing that breaks easily," said Pat. "It went down with a bit of a thump." "No, it'll be all right," said Ted. "I'm just glad to get it here all in one piece." "Oh, Ted, what a monster," said Mrs. Goggins. "I can't be doing with this on my counter all morning. Just look at my letters, all flattened." "I rang Pencaster parcel office," said Ted, "and they said they'd pick it up as soon as possible. Never fear, they'll be here before you've had your cup of tea." "Just look at the time," said Pat. "I'd better be off. Where did I put my hat? And where are my... Look under here, Pat," said Mrs. Goggins, as she pulled the letters out from under the giant parcel. Ted lifted it up for her. "Here we go." "Don't drop it," said Mrs. Goggins. "I can feel something." Oh, dear me. She had found a bent and crumpled something, with bits of broken glass. "Oh, Pat, is that your glasses?" said Ted. "What's left of them," said Pat. "They're not much use now. How am I going to deliver these letters? I can't see to drive. Never mind reading the addresses." "Now, Pat," said Mrs. Goggins, "Ted can take you home in his lorry, and you can get your spare pair of glasses." "What spare pair?" moaned Pat. "Oh, Pat, haven't you got a spare pair?" "No, I've never broken them before. I've had these for years and years." "Well," said Ted, "you'll have to borrow some." "You can try my old ones," said Mrs. Goggins. "They might do." "If only I hadn't brought that parcel in," said Ted. "Don't worry, Pat. We can take letters round in the lorry. I'll give you a hand." "Thanks, Ted. I certainly won't be able to drive." Mrs. Goggins had found her old pair of glasses in a drawer. "Here we are. Give these a try, Pat." "Oh, well, let's see." Pat screwed up his eyes and looked around. But he tripped over a mop and a bucket on his way out to the door. "Oops." "Dearie me," said Mrs. Goggins. "What next?" "Don't worry," said Ted. "I'll keep an eye on him." And he followed Pat, carrying his letters. They met Dr. Gilbertson, doing her shopping. Pat was not sure who it was. "Good morning, Getting hot, isn't it?" he said. Now then, Dorothy, I've got lots of letters for you. This looks like one of yours. Here we are. Have a good read. It'll do wonders for your milk yield. Pat, Ted whispered in his ear. That's not Dorothy. Oh, gosh. Ah, said Pat. Are you feeling ill, Pat? Said Dr. Gilbertson. I'm sorry, Doctor. It's my glasses. Squashed flat under a parcel. These are your letters, Doctor, said Ted. Well, I never. What is going on? Said Dr. Gilbertson. Better be on our way with those letters, said Ted. Better be on our way with these letters, said Ted. Pat and Ted went on their way in Ted's lorry. The next stop was at the church. The letters seemed to have become mixed up. Tell you what, said Ted. We can let the tailgate down, and we'll have a good place to sort them out. As good as Mrs. Goggins' counter. I'll just deliver this lot while you sort the rest, said Pat. Are you sure you've got all the Reverend's letters? Said Ted. I'd know them with my eyes shut. I've been delivering letters for more years than you've had hot dinners. The Reverend Timms was kneeling on the lawn doing some weeding. Pat fell over him. Oops, Jess, what are you doing here? Good Lord deliver us, Pat, said the Reverend. I'm not, Jess. What are you doing? You are, Pat, aren't you? Sorry, Pat. I've got the wrong glasses on. Can't see properly. All right for the weeding, but not for faces. Bless me, where did I put my proper glasses? I know just how you feel, Reverend, said Pat. I've got Mrs. Goggins' old glasses on. Did you say Mrs. Goggins? Yes, but it's a long story. Have some letters. Better be on my way, Reverend, said Pat, looking at a Timms-shaped bush. By the way, your hair's looking a bit green. Must be this hot weather. Cheerio. Ted was holding out a postcard for Pat. This is for the Reverend, Pat. I think you've got them muddled again. The Reverend Timms followed Pat to the gate, looking very puzzled. Pat, these are not for me at all. The writing's a bit fuzzy, but I do believe it says Miss Hubbard on this one. You'll have to excuse him, Reverend, said Ted. It was my fault partly, you see. His glasses were squashed flat. They look all right to me, said the Reverend Timms. It's a long story, said Pat. I think it'll be best if you read out all the addresses for me from now on, Ted. No problem, said Ted. I wish I could help, said the Reverend, but I don't know what's become of my proper glasses. They're in the lap of the gods. It's my memory, you know. It gets worse and worse. I wonder where I put them. It's nice of you to offer your help, said Pat. Thanks, Reverend, and cheerio. Bye, Pat. Off went Ted and Pat to the school. They seem to have moved the gate, said Pat. It was here yesterday. I'll just pop in with this parcel, said Ted. One of the children came to talk to Pat. Hello, Sarah, said Pat. How's your dad? Oh, Pat, hello, said the fuzzy shape. I'm not Sarah, I'm Lucy. Oh dear, what a muddle, said Pat. Sorry about that. What a silly thing to do. Ask Ted, he'll tell you. Mrs. Pringle came to see Pat. Now then, Ted, said Pat, let's not dally. We have such a lot of letters to deliver. Oh, Pat, said Mrs. Pringle, what a joker you are. Ted's told me all about your glasses, but surely I'm not all that fuzzy. Oh, sorry, Mrs. Pringle. It's awful. I really did think you were Ted. Come on, Pat, said Ted. They were on their way. The next stop was at Thompson Ground. There's Alf's catalogue, said Ted. Now, you can't go wrong with that. Pat went to look for Alf. His glasses were so fuzzy that he thought he could see Alf sitting on his tractor. Are you there, Alf? The tractor didn't reply. Alf? Pat stubbed his toes on the tractor's wheels. Oh dear, talking to a tractor now. Sorry, tractor. I don't suppose you want a catalogue. Dear me. But Alf can't be far away. Anybody in? Pat felt his way around the farm buildings. He found a large letterbox and popped the catalogue into it. When he went back to the lorry, Ted said, "Did you find Alf then?" "He wasn't about," said Pat. "I just popped it in their new letterbox." "New letterbox?" said Ted. "They haven't got a new letterbox." "See for yourself," said Pat. Ted went to look. "It was somewhere round here," said Pat, but he couldn't find the door, never mind the letterbox. Then at last, "Here we are, didn't I tell you? A new letterbox." "An old barn door with a missing plank, more like," said Ted. "Locked up as well. Now then, how are we going to get it back? Hang on, I'll get someone to help us." "Let's have a look," said Pat. If only I could see properly. Pat walked into a ladder. Ouch! Then he decided to climb it. Where does this go? I could get in through the window, he said to himself. It led into the hayloft over the barn. Anybody there? Pat thought he could see Alf standing in the dark corner. What are you doing up here, Alf? Said Pat. Oh no, it's an old coat. Well, it could do with a new outfit from that catalogue. Where is everybody? Suddenly Pat disappeared. He had fallen through the trap door and onto a pile of hay below. Luckily, he had a soft landing. Ted came looking for Pat outside the locked barn door. "Pat, where are you?" He could hear Pat blundering about in the darkness inside. "Sounds like a mad bull." Alf Thompson came at last. "Hello, Ted. Having a nice talk to my barn door?" "Hello, Alf. Nah, I'm talking to Pat." "Well, how's he got in there?" said Alf. "It's all locked up." "We'll have a look, if I've got the right key." They found Pat, covered in hay, and holding the crumpled catalogue in his hand. "Well, I'll be bothered. However did you get in there?" said Alf. "Just look at you." They dusted Pat down, and Dorothy served them all a pot of tea, with fresh scones, and Pat soon felt himself again. When all the letters had been delivered, Ted took Pat back to the post office. "Oh, Ted and Pat, back at last," said Mrs. Goggins. "I've been ringing round everywhere trying to track you down." "Now then, Mrs. Goggins, there's no need to worry about us," said Pat. "It's been a long day, and a hot one, but we managed somehow. There's nothing else gone wrong, has there?" "Oh, no, Pat. It's just that after you'd gone, I found these. They look awfully like yours." She showed Pat a pair of glasses. They must have slipped down behind the stamp book. That huge parcel must have given them a push. "Let's try them," said Pat. "Magic! I can see again. Oh, that's lovely. They must be mine. Thank you, Mrs. Goggins. Thank you so much." "Hang on," said Ted. "We saw them all smashed up." "No, we didn't," said Mrs. Goggins. "There must have been another pair of glasses on the counter." "Whose could they be?" said Pat. "Well," said Mrs. Goggins, "the Reverend came in before you this morning, and he must have left his glasses here. Miss Hubbard was talking to him. 10 to the dozen. That would have made anyone forget anything. He popped in again after you called on him. He didn't mind about the glasses being broken. Said he needed a new pair anyway. The old ones were forever sliding down his nose and muddling him up in the middle of a service. So he's gone off to Pencaster for a new pair." "Well, I never," said Ted. "Wonder if I need glasses. I think I'll invent a pair that never gets lost. Back to the workshop. What a long hot day it's been." "The post would never have got through without you," said Pat. "Thanks, Ted. Oh, and can I order a pair of your unlosable glasses, please?" Cheerio. And another pair for the Reverend, said Mrs. Goggins. Bye, Pat. Bye, Ted. The end. Goodbye, Mila. Goodbye, Jack. I'll see you soon. Goodbye, everybody. Bye.